Hello, I'm Jennifer and this is Unearthed Relics, and today we're talking all things bingo. I'm going to start off with a little bit of the history of bingo, which I have been researching a little bit to be able to share out. I'm going to show off some of the things that I've thrifted through the years that relate to bingo, and then we'll get to doing a little bit of bingo card related crafting here a little bit later. So let's jump right into the history. So the earliest known accounts of a game that was similar to bingo came about in the 1500s. They played a lotto or lottery style game in Italy, and it gradually worked its way across Europe in the 1600s, 1700s, and so on. In 1910, or around the 1910s, a variant of the game was played in England called House, and then it eventually made its way over to the United States, where it was popularized as a carnival game by a man named Hugh Ward, based out of, I think, Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania area, and he popularized it at carnivals around Pennsylvania in the 20s, and he called it Beano because they used actual dried beans as the markers for the game. He's also the man who's credited with creating the standardized set of rules or instructions that are still more or less used today. And then a version of that was being played at a carnival in Georgia when discovered by a man named Edwin Lowe. And Edwin Lowe was a New York-based toy creator who saw the potential for the game, and it's rumored that he overheard a winner shouting out bingo, and thus the name bingo was coined and eventually gained popularity as the name for this game. So Ward had copyrighted the game in 1933, but he had failed to renew that copyright, and that ultimately gave Lowe the ability to come in and get a patent for bingo in 1941, which included some of the mechanical things that he had borrowed from the way that carnivals were able to run the game and call the numbers and pick the numbers and so on and so forth. So Lowe was able to then really mass produce and market the game throughout the 40s, and it rose to popularity. Another thing that Lowe is credited with was connecting with mathematician Carl Leffler, who was able to help him overcome the challenge of having multiple winners often, because there were only a couple dozen variations of the cards that existed up until that point. And Leffler was able to use his knowledge of mathematics to come up with more than 6,000 different card combinations. And if you think that's a lot, I saw one article that referenced the fact that this is actually mathematically the number of different card combinations that are possible. So that's a big number. So Ed Lowe is also credited with creating another really popular and commonly known game. He discovered it with a couple playing a dice game on their yacht and was able to kind of develop it and market it into the sensation that became Yahtzee. He ultimately sold his company for several $1 million in 1973 to Milton Bradley and passed away in 1986. So that's a brief history of bingo as well as Yahtzee. But here in the US, the standard game of bingo is a card with 5 rows and 5 columns in each of those rows, and the numbers 1 through 15 appear in the B column, the numbers 16 through 30 appear in the I column, and so on and so forth to get you all 75 numbers. This is like an older printed version. I love the fonts on this for the numbers. I think that's great. But yeah, I love the look of these. This one, I've again found things throughout the years that are from a variety of different companies, several from a company called Whitman. This one is Schletlow and Reichter. I'm probably saying that wrong. In any case, like there's another set of those, but I've got lots and lots of old bingo cards in various colors and shapes and size, and I think they're just wonderful, wonderful things for crafting in their own right. I also have a few cards that are really cool because they kind of have their own markers on them. These are auto bingo so like a highway card-based game. So obviously you wouldn't want pieces rolling around your car. But I think those are really fun. It's kind of an activity thing, but a good example of a variant of bingo. And then the other thing I really love about bingo, in addition to just like the fun kind of graphics on a lot of the boxes are just really kind of fun and interesting, are the things that people have come up with to dispense the bingo chips or balls or whatever, but the things that have the numbers on them. This was the one that I found recently. This is called Bingo-matic. I'll show the box over here in just a second, but you put the little chips down inside of it, and then they spit out the top, which I think is really cool. And you can tell this one's a little bit older. It's been played probably because a lot of the paint's rubbed off. I think that's just fabulous and fun. This was another one that I'd found in one of my trips to the Goodwill outlets. You often find things kind of scattered, so you have to do your best to kind of recreate like things and find all the pieces. I was successful in this one, not so much in this one, sadly, but this one you do that and then the little chips pop out the bottom, so I think that's kind of fun. Note on the chips themselves as well, so sometimes they're plastic with kind of painted or raised numbers on them. I love the old wooden kind, and I've found lots of the numbers. I've not found any fancy dispensers. I guess those could just be pulled out of a hat or a box or something like that too if you were using it. So a lot of the old game sets actually come with the numbers, and I love digging around trying to find as many of those as possible. Chips. For marking, obviously you can use coins or just about anything, including beans, as I learned in doing some of the research today. I've not found any super cool ones of those, so if you've got examples of really cool markers that you've seen through the years, sometimes they're just little scraps of cardboard, but oftentimes they're those little plastic chips that you would see in other kind of games as well. This was another one, not terribly old, but I just like the idea of a bingo spinner. I thought that was really kind of fun. There's also versions of bingo that are kind of specialty versions. So this one's bride bingo, would be like a fun shower game. I've seen other versions that are like Bible bingo or different kinds of school-based bingo games or educational bingo. So bingo, it's a lot of fun. And now let's switch gears to doing some crafting. Starting with a napkin. And I think most folks know that for full transparency, you'd want to pull off that bottom piece, and then I'm just going to tear, since I'm going to put it on probably that side, I'm going to go ahead and tear off. Now this one looks like it's actually got like a third ply back behind there, so let me go ahead and pull that off as well. Let me get that onto this side here. I'm just going to use Mod Podge and get some down underneath here. As well. I can be working on some other things while this is all kind of drying. Thankfully it doesn't take too terribly long. You know you've got enough kind of glue on there when you can start to see the numbers back in there and the letters back there behind there. Right, I'll be able to let that dry here. And then I'll either trim that off or use sandpaper to pull it off. I don't think it matters too terribly much if we get started on the next step because it's going to have to do some drying as well. I'm just using kind of a florally looking stencil, and I'm going to use use texture paste. I think the trick for this will be getting it done before the stencil sticks to the other side. Making a little bit of a mess, so I know that I'm gonna have to go back through and wipe down things here in just a second. And I just want like a thin little layer that'll help it dry faster. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect. That's one of the things that's gonna kind of give it sort of a rough sort of look. Now you can put color down into the texture paste. I usually leave it, and then if I want to do color, can kind of stamp, use ink over the top of it or paint, just kind of lightly. And I might do some of that with this one just to kind of make it a little bit different and unique from the one we did before. Again, I'm working kind of fast here because I want to get this up before it sticks down. And I'm not going all the way to the edge of the stencil in all the spots. I think that that's probably okay because it's kind of a pattern that cuts off anyway. There we go. So it's not perfect, but I think it'll do what we want it to do. All right, I need to get that on off of there. Awesome. Ready to go. I'm going to swap it in. Let's switch over to this one. So I'm going to probably put it on like that, and then we'll get them attached down here at the bottom. Now I'm limited by how far I can get the hole punch in, at least. I don't think I'm going to put a bow on it, but I am going to double tie it so it doesn't come undone. And then the last thing was a little butterfly, and I'm just going to ink that one up. These came from a greeting card that my mom had given me. Just trying to take some of the white off around the edges. And it just doesn't feel like a collage unless you've got a little bit of inking going on it. And I could glue that down, but I'm going to go ahead and just staple that down. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm kind of connecting the wing and the photo and the card. think that turned out really nicely. The other thing I'm going to do, I can go ahead and ink around the edges of this one. Can also kind of lightly ink onto some of the visible parts of, add a little bit of ink. Onto that one, and then let's get that glue down on there. Okay. All right, so we're going to have a little interactive segment here at the tail end of today's program. I've got printable vintage bingo cards online for you guys to use if you want to play along, or you could use your own bingo card, but I'm going to call some numbers while showing off some of the things that I've crafted with bingo cards throughout the years. So I'm going to get my Bingo-matic. We're going to get that going here. Our first number is 063, and I'm going to start with some things from Valentine's Day. So these are just examples of little door hangers that I've created using doilies and Scrabble blocks and some flowers and tinsel and garland. So just kind of a fun little door hanger. This one I actually cut a heart shape out of and used a copy of a vintage Valentine to make. I think that one's kind of cute as well. Let's go ahead and get us another number here. Oops, this one came out with 2, so I'll go ahead and read both of those. That's B13 and I22, B13 and I22. Let me go ahead and dive on into, let's do 4th of July next. I had a lot of fun finding different vintage things, coming up with different objects that would support them so they would stand up, and crafting little patriotic looking things with bingo cards. Let's go ahead and call a number, and then I'll show another one of those. There we go. This one also produced 2, so this one is 074 and I29. Here's another one with a little dolly and some cute little tinsel and buttons and things like that. This is another little dolly. I think just on their own they weren't super cute, but using little hair ribbons and different things like that, little cookie cutter to stand them up, I think they become really cute and fun and definitely very patriotic. Here's a little soldier. He's got his little USA thing down there too. All right, let's see what we got. This is B3. I'm gonna go ahead and do another one just for fun. Here we go. N43. And G57. Let me go ahead and show off, let's see, let's jump to Halloween next. I had a lot of fun coming up with different little bits and pieces that I could do for Halloween bingo cards. This one's kind of wrapped in medical gauze with a little skeleton there. On that one I was just using a little jingle block glued to the back to make it stand up. And let's get another one going here. I16. Like some of these are on the outside, so I'm going to go ahead and read them as well. So G54 and G47. G54 and G47. You know how these little guys have gotten kind of out of the little thing there. We've got a whole bunch here. Let's read them all off. I'll pull this one first. So N42 and B4 and O62. Here's another little Halloween one. I thought this little bendy guy made out of those beads that kind of have like a, I don't know what you would call that shape, but those were really popular at one point in time. I remember doing like hair barrettes and things with those. Anyway, that's a really cute Halloween one. And I loved this one with the spider, and used a piece of tinsel to cut up and make a spider web that he can kind of crawl down on, so he looks super spooky and fun. Oh, I think I'm out of bingo numbers. Oh, I didn't put enough in there. In any case, this one's a Christmas one, again using a cookie cutter as the base, and yeah, another little Christmas one. So if you got bingo on one of the cards that you printed out, let me know, and I am going to send bingo cards. I've got a stack of 20 of those that I'll send out to the first people who comment and say that they got bingo on one of those cards. If you live in the US, I'll mail that out to you as thanks for watching today's video. Thank you so much. If you come up with fun things to craft with or do with your bingo cards, let me know. And if you've had cool bingo related finds that you'd like to share about as well in the comments, please feel free to do so. And if you like today's video and like looking at more thrifted vintage finds as well as crafts, please feel free to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching today.